Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 25th of March 2025. And of course, here in Cincinnati, it's 2 days away from opening day. I will look forward to being there and checking out the scene over there with opening day because I've always said when it comes to baseball in Cincinnati, nobody does opening day like Cincinnati, and I certainly will be there for it. And I look forward to partaking in the festivities over there, especially the parade on Fifth Street, which is always a wonderful thing. Everybody gets together and has a wonderful parade up down Fifth Street in Cincinnati. And of course, all the activities, all the people meeting one another, and all the baseball fans converging with one another. I'm really looking forward to it, and it should be a good and fun thing tomorrow. I hope everyone has themselves a wonderful day. A little chilly out here in Cincinnati today, a little surprisingly chilly when you consider it's been actually decent for the last few days. Rained all night yesterday, and of course today rained a little bit, but it's still in the 40s and it's still a little nippy, but it's still March, so hopefully we get some real weather, real warm weather coming here soon. Now, of course, in the next 2 to 3 months, we're going to have the summer and the high humidity to where everybody in Cincinnati is going to be saying, of course, we're going to wish we had the colder weather back. I mean, that's the nature of the four seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Now we'll go ahead and get right down to it. News broke just minutes ago that the NFL wants to move the kickoffs to the 35-yard line. Back up. After a touchback, move the kickoff to the 35-yard line after a touchback. I do apologize. At this point, if you're not going to go back to the old format, you might as well just do away with kickoffs because it's just silly and remotely silly at this point. And I say it respectively for one reason. You guys are always the fix something that isn't broke type. When we talk about the NFL Rules Committee, there's always something. It's either overreact to something small or try and fix something that's already working well. The NFL has its own weird mindset, as we all know, and some people there need their heads crushed with sledgehammers. And I'm talking about the Commissioner Roger Goodell and the Players Association rep Troy Vincent. That's because they don't know how to leave things be and leave the product as it should be. This is about, I guess, you want to try to get more returns out of the end zone. Still doesn't do the trick. Problem is, there's still going to be touchbacks. And the fact you're going to start at the 35-yard line doesn't help the cause at all. But I do apologize for the fact that the NFL has to put up with Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent's stupidity because that's who the NFL is. So good luck, NFL. I look forward to seeing this thing become egg on your face as a lot of the other rules are. So that's what I said all along. I've never been a fan of all these crazy rules changes. I've never been a fan of anything unless it really constitutes it. Question with this is what led to this? Because they wanted to do the XFL thing last season, and we're still getting touchbacks. We're going to get more touchbacks simply because kickers have strong legs these days to where they just kick it out of the engine between the uprights. And simply put, we're still going to get touchbacks. And the fact they're going to move it to the 35-yard line to think they're going to get more runbacks after kickoffs doesn't help the cause at all. That's it. Good luck with this because I think this is going to be another failure. And in the next offseason, we're going to be having this conversation again. Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent feel the urge to want to destroy this product, and they're starting to do it piece by piece. Done this for a while. I said we're looking forward to some more crazy rule changes, and here we are, and it's just started. I know it was talked about, but now I guess it's going to be officially proposed to the Rules Committee. We're going to find out whether it passes or not. Just do away with kickoffs and just have each side start at the 30-yard line. That's plain and simple. I get it. Offense sells, and they want to try and manipulate defenses, but I'm not sure changing kickoffs and touchbacks to the 35-yard line is the answer. Now to another news that took place here in Cincinnati. Now apparently the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson are willing to discuss a new contract. Simply put, the Bengals want to keep Trey Hendrickson, and Trey Hendrickson has been adamant and saying he wants to stay in Cincinnati. I'll wait and see when this thing is done. Because I've learned all along when it comes to the Bengals front office, they do things in their own way that surprises you good, bad, pretty, and ugly. I said all along, this is a guy they should have kept all along. They should have had this deal done maybe a year or two ago when they had the chance to reset the defensive edge market, especially when you consider the deals that Max Crosby got in Vegas, what Myles Garrett got in Cleveland, and most recently what Danielle Hunter got in Houston. And now this is going to come up. I expect something to be done. They said the trade is off the table, which doesn't surprise me because Hendrickson is still under contract for another year, and they're not releasing him. So my guess is he plays through the contract, and maybe they do some form of negotiation. Nothing surprises me anymore. If they get the deal done, it wouldn't surprise me. And if they don't, it doesn't surprise me either because we know how the Bengals front office operates. They operate in their own cynical, wild mind in their own crazy world. It includes the Bengals fans, the Bengals super fans, the media members, like all of them I mentioned before, especially Kelsey Conway, who wants to stick her nose in the business when her coward ass needs to just shut up. And of course, the content creators who want to stick their nose in every business when they need to learn how to shut up. Let the contract situation play out. We'll talk about it when it's officially done. I wouldn't be surprised either way. So I'd get those out of the way. Now, a wild scene that took place over the last day and a half on all these social media platforms. This is the beef between Asante Samuel Sr. and Deion Sanders. I guess Asante Samuel felt the need to put a screenshot of his career accolades and try to compare it to Deion Sanders and try to call himself the greatest cornerback the NFL has ever seen. And they try to base it off of stats, base it off of, numbers. Let me just say this. I love the hell out of Asante Samuel Sr. You guys know, two-time Super Bowl champ in Super Bowls 33 and 34 with the Patriots. Carved a nice career over there. Also spent some time in Philadelphia and Atlanta. But to compare yourself to somebody like Deion Sanders by using stat sheets is one of the most dumbest things I have ever encountered. Since some of the people are new to these shows, especially the new platforms like Apple, Spotify, and iHeart, let me just give you my stance on stats before I concede and continue. I've never been a fan of stats because they don't tell the whole story. You can't be one of these stat gurus and act like putting a screenshot of stats comparisons is the way to go in certain senses, especially when we talk about two players of different eras and two players of different positions and different times of whatever careers they had. Because there's so much context when you talk about when Deion Sanders played, we talk about the circumstances that evolved when Asante Samuel Sr. played. Two different eras. But I've said this all along when it comes to Deion Sanders, when it comes to playing the cornerback position when he was playing in the NFL. If he stands on the field, all quarterbacks and all offensive coordinators do everything they can to avoid throwing it to him or this area. Because a chance of a pick six is coming because Sanders was a hell of a ball hawk in those days, in his time. Perfect case in point, I encourage everyone to YouTube the 1995 regular season game, San Francisco at Atlanta. He was playing for San Francisco at the time, guarding Atlanta's premier receiver, Andre Rison. One play before they get into a fist fight exchange where flags were thrown all over the place. The next play, Chris Chandler wants to throw to Rison with Deion Sanders right there. Deion Sanders picks off the pass, takes it on a pick six to the house, doing his little high step. That was Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders didn't need impact or stats to show himself on the field. Why? If he stands on the field, no one's even going to throw near him. Maybe the only one I can think of that came close would be Darrelle Revis during his time with the New York Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs. Asante Samuel was a whale of a cornerback. I'll acknowledge that. I mean, he certainly was. But you can't just put out a stat sheet and say Asante Samuel, based on stats, had a greater career than Deion Sanders, when Deion Sanders, as a cornerback, had 10 times the impact that Asante Samuel ever had. Because there were times people were still going at Asante Samuel, and Asante Samuel, I don't think, ever achieved the status of the best cornerback in the NFL during his time. Probably up there with guys like Champ Bailey, this one. Ty Law was another, his teammate in New England, among many others. But to put him in the same category as Deion Sanders and to start going at Deion Sanders as well as Shannon Sharpe to the show, the nightcap. I'm trying to figure out what Asante Samuel is trying to do and is trying to say. I mean, everybody's seen you play. You're a solid cornerback. Maybe the misfortune for you was you're probably remembered for that dropped interception in Super Bowl 42 on the 2nd and 5 when Eli Manning overthrew David Tyree. You had the pick that could have sealed it, and you dropped it. Because we know what happened on the next play. Eli Manning getting out of the pocket, throwing the long heave to David Tyree on the catch on the top of the helmet. 3 plays later, Manning did Plaxico Burress for the game-winning touchdown. Had Asante Samuel gotten that interception, it's different history. But when he dropped the interception, it set up the New York Giants Super Bowl upset over the New England Patriots striving for perfection in Super Bowl 42. I love Asante Samuel. He was a solid cornerback. On the level of a Deion Sanders, based on stats, doesn't do it. Deion Sanders didn't need the stat sheets because when Deion Sanders was on the field as a cornerback or as a safety, because he spent time at safety, especially in Dallas and Baltimore, you weren't even going to try to throw near him because the guy was a ball hawk and was a master at getting pick sixes. Because that's why quarterbacks and offensive coordinators and head coaches design plays to keep the ball away from Deion Sanders because he took away that side of the field just because of his presence. I mean, ask Jerry Rice. I mean, many times during the times when the 49ers played the Falcons when he was in Atlanta or Dallas when Sanders was in Dallas, he would be glued in on Jerry Rice the best way possible. And we know what Jerry Rice's stature is, the greatest wide receiver ever. I mean, Asante Samuel was terrific. They say there's levels. Deion Sanders showed levels to it. And quite honestly, you don't need a stat sheet to see just how great Deion Sanders was. Film room and how the coaches and the quarterbacks schemed offenses is all you needed to know. Just because he stood on the field, that tells you how teams respected the great Deion Sanders. That's the difference. Some of these old heads when it comes to athletes need to flat out grow up because I don't know what Asante Samuel is trying to accomplish here. I mean, people in New England know how good he was. But we talk about putting him in the status of Deion Sanders. You better have something other than stat sheets because stat sheets will not cut it, period. And of course, the news in Baltimore that has Bengals fans and their panties all up in a bunch again. Seems like every day I want to talk about Bengals panties all up in a bunch because they want me to talk about it. I'll gladly do it. This was Chido Awuzie signing with the division rival Baltimore Ravens. A solid depth piece for a secondary that was just lit up last season. And I mean lit up. I mean, for the longest time, especially the first half of the season, they were getting torched. I mean, he's not going to be brought in to be a starter. He's not going to replace Brandon Stevens or a Marlon Humphrey because I'm sure they're probably going to get another corner via free agency or the draft, maybe 2. I mean, they still have a Nate Wiggins. They have a TJ Tampa who they drafted, and he's going to help. But I'm trying to figure out why are Bengals fans so sick-headed, obsessed, and upset that he decided to sign with a division rival. He's a free agent. He can do whatever the frick it is he wants. Again, no one's going to mistake him to overtake a Marlon Humphrey spot or Nate Wiggins spot. He's going to be a depth piece because Baltimore likes to have depth in that secondary, which is a total need given how bad that secondary was at times last season, especially the 2 games against Cincinnati where Joe Burrow just sliced up that defense. But it was a solid depth piece and a solid move, and Bengals fans need to just flat out shut up and get over it simply because he made the decision that was in his own best interest. I mean, he's not the same guy he was before he blew his knee out in the 2022 season for Cincinnati, but still a solid depth piece. Could probably rotate him as an extra nickel back or a dime back in the packages that Baltimore likes to run in their secondary. But secondary depth was a must for Baltimore when you consider what happened to that secondary last season at times. Good, solid signing. And now I guess we get some conclusion on the NFL draft of the quarterbacks. Guess Miami quarterback Cam Ward says he has the belief that he will now be taken number 1 overall by the Tennessee Titans. And it comes out that the Tennessee Titans are going to hold private workouts with Ward to draw their conclusion. We all know the number 1 draft pick has been a hot topic since they got it. And we know the quarterback class outside of Ward Sanders basically just tanks. Question I have is, what are you going to do with Will Levis? Is he going to be a backup, or are you going to send him out? Because I have an itch. Will Levis is not going to take this too kindly. I mean, he wants to be the man over there at Tennessee. But I like this for Tennessee. Give them Cam Ward, maybe given how thin and how not so great the quarterback depth pool is in this draft. He's probably the most talented of them all. And I think it probably makes the most sense for Tennessee to go get him. I mean, it makes all the sense right now. You're holding the private workouts. And if you're going to let Will Levis go for this, might as well. Because Will Levis' career so far has been an absolute bust. Actually, a strong word might be bust. But when you consider the makeup of that Tennessee roster, they basically set him up to fail. I mean, you get a Cam Ward and basically start from scratch almost. But the problem is you have a left tackle in Dan Moore, who was a turnstile in Pittsburgh last season, and you overpay to protect the quarterback's blind side. I wish Tennessee nothing but the best, because Dan Moore got a contract he had no business getting. Ask Steeler fans about that. And now he's going to try and block the blind side of Cam Ward if he take him number one. Good luck, because you're going to get this guy killed in an instant. Because when he was at Pittsburgh, especially in that season finale against Cincinnati, where Trey Hendrickson just abused him to death, and Tennessee signs him to that ridiculous contract, good luck with that. But as far as Cam Ward and the number one pick in Tennessee goes, right now, that looks like that's what's going to happen. We'll find out where it all goes. Never been on the Shedeur Sanders bandwagon. There's a couple guys like a Jackson Dart who might get drafted higher than people think, just largely because the quarterback talent in this draft is not necessarily all that great. You go on down with the guys like Quinn Ewers, who I thought is coming out a year too early. But let's see where we go with this NFL draft, because it's going to be real interesting. The fact that Tennessee wants to hold private workouts with Cam Ward, and Ward truly believes he's done enough to earn the number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft to Tennessee, I think it sort of speaks volumes at the moment. We'll see where that one goes, because it's going to be interesting. There's no break in the NFL, isn't there? I mean, I can have a show every day about NFL topics if I show twos. But it's funny how every time I try to start my show, there's always 2 to 3 breaking news topics in the NFL that they call for my attention. I guess I'll go ahead and give them that undivided attention. Before I proceed on with other areas, just one quick touch up on a bit of a get well soon segment to the standout from USC, JuJu Watkins. Know the story there. She tore her ACL in the collegiate tournament, done for the rest of the way. A standout in the women's collegiate tournament. You'll probably argue the best player in women's college basketball. A couple others might have a strong case. Lindsey Von Leith of TCU might be one. Of course, Paige Buchers at UConn. But JuJu Watkins was basically, she was her. And for this to happen, it's just a tough blow for her. Of course, the program and the entire NCAA women's tournament bracket, especially when you consider the star power she brought. Probably going to be headed a collision course at some point with UConn and Paige Buchers before this happened. And of course, they had that great regular season game earlier in the year. Rather unfortunate, great player on a solid team who had, aspirations on a deep run of the women's NCAA tournament. Get well soon, JuJu Watkins. You're nothing short of sensational. Get well soon. Godspeed. I hate to see injuries like that, and I'm sure everybody else does. Now, for all my fight followers over here, news came out a while back. It was actually confirmed earlier today that one of the voices of boxing all time is returning. That is our own Jim Lampley. He talked about it on this the Ring Magazine X account, saying he was going to do blow by blow. I didn't read too much into it because I didn't know the truth. He confirmed it with Dan Canobio earlier today that he's looking forward to coming back and doing blow by blow for the May 2nd triple header at Madison Square Garden. Called some of the surreal upsets on HBO boxing. Maybe the top ones, of course, when Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson. Just hearing the words, Mike Tyson has been knocked out, is still something nobody could ever foresee, and it still sends shockwaves all over the place. And of course, his two famous words, it happened the night George Foreman won the heavyweight championship at age 45 from Michael Moore. You know the story with that one on November 5th, 1994. And now he has a book coming out titled It Happened, about his long broadcasting career from ABC to HBO. That terrific run that nobody, even him, thought it would last as long as it did. I believe he said it spanned somewhere near 50 years, and it was close to 30 of it on HBO. If you want to learn more about his career, he had an interview with Al Bernstein not too long ago talking about this, as well as the upcoming book. And the fact that he's back in the boxing game at age 75, especially with boxing commentary sort of flattening out and plateauing with nobody really standing out, I think is a good thing. Because I've always said, after HBO went down to the dead bin when they were done, I believe it was like 2017 or 2018, somebody should have picked this guy up. Whatever reasons, nobody knows. But some networks should have picked this guy up a long time ago for their play-by-play. Because when you talk about voices of sports, voices of whatever specific sports category, in the sport of boxing, Jim Lampley was it, and probably will still be it when he calls his triple header at Madison Square Garden. Now, who's going to be with him? Who knows? I would like to see Al Bernstein back with him, because he even said, if Lampley's coming back, send me the offer. I'll go over there and join him. Because those two, I thought, called the Mayweather-Pacquiao event rather well. Great chemistry between the two of them. And it's great to see Jim Lampley back. He's going to have the book out coming out here soon called It Happened. Of course, spun off from his famous quote of the George Foreman knockout of Michael Moore. And he's always going to be remembered for it by his own admission. And he's going to talk about his life in broadcasting for 50 years. Not just only did with boxing, done the Olympics, called NFL games, did some college football, Wimbledon, when Wimbledon was on HBO way back when. So the Lamps is back, and get ready for a pure, passionate commentary. Because one thing I'll say about Jim Lampley, you can agree or disagree with his stance. You can agree or disagree with his views. But when he picks up the mic behind the play-by-play of the boxing, he does it with a passion, and he does it with a love like none other. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. Sometimes I'll admit a little too much, but that's what makes Jim Lampley Jim Lampley. I'll be the first to say it. Welcome back, Jim Lampley. You were gone for a while. You should have been doing this all along. It's a crying shame nobody wanted to pick you up. And when he comes back, I'll be the first to say it. He's back. It happened. As he would eloquently say. Speaking of it happened, a major historical night took place 67 years ago today at the Chicago Stadium in Chicago, Illinois. It was Sugar Ray Robinson sealing his fate as the greatest fighter pound for pound of all time. Actually, you can point to many of them, but this one might be the capper when he got his revenge on Carmen Basilio in the 1958 Fight of the Year in a basically grueling fight to regain the middleweight championship, becoming the first fighter to win a world championship 5 times in one weight class, as he did in the middleweight division. This was a rematch of a grueling fight that took place a year before at the old Yankee Stadium, where Basilio got the decision in the 1957 Fight of the Year. Basically, the two fights were the same, where both guys were just going at it. The only difference in the rematch was the skill level of Sugar Ray Robinson, once again showing why he's the greatest pound for pound fighter of all time. Started to use his jab, utilize the ring more, and basically just show the skill level on this night. I guess the always tough and durable Carmen Basilio. Let me remind you, this was a couple fights after. Robinson laid the perfect left hook to Gene Fullmer that knocked him out, which is classified as a left hook of perfection. And there's another case, again, of why for these all-time pound-for-pound rankings that everybody likes to indulge in, Sugar Ray Robinson, in my opinion, is far and away number one. I could point to about 999 other reasons. I don't have the time to discuss them all, but I'm sure all you guys can see it, read it. The footage is there on the YouTube channels. Gather it up for yourself. And basically, if you still don't think Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest fighter pound for pound of all time, I would highly advise you shut up, get off the app, go to a hospital, get checked for CTE, and if they ask why, because you think Sugar Ray Robinson's not the greatest fighter of all time, generate the results, get them to me, and I will gladly help you. Because I need more proof that he's not. Maybe I'll give you credence for someone like Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, or Henry Armstrong. A couple of other ones in there like a Sam Langford or a Harry Greb. Maybe someone like a Roberto Duran. They could probably come close, but still miles behind Sugar Ray Robinson and his overall impact. I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson is up there at the gap between Robinson and my number 2, who was Ali, sizable. And as great as Ali was, even he said the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time was Sugar Ray Robinson, even though he called himself the greatest. Footage is out there. Do the research. I mean, if you think somebody else is, please present it to me legitimately. Otherwise, you're going to look foolish. And speaking of all-time greats, the back end of the 70s as the heavyweight division came to an end. This took place 37 years ago at Las Vegas. This was the first of 2 meetings between Larry Holmes and Earnie Shavers. I've always said the most criminally underrated fighter ever, at least in the heavyweight division, was Larry Holmes. And he showed his skill set and his greatness on this particular night against a brutally punching Earnie Shavers, who came out the first couple rounds looking like he was going to go get him. But Larry Holmes and that terrific left jab and his boxing skill just took over and just won a unanimous decision, basically winning 11 of the 12 rounds. This was a title eliminator. The winner of this fight was going to fight Ken Norton for the heavyweight championship. Larry Holmes wanted it that much. He showed the world why he was going to be an all-time great on this particular night, just basically owning Earnie Shavers like the 3rd round on, the most brutal puncher maybe in heavyweight history, because every time Shavers cracked Holmes, he didn't even dent him. And Larry Holmes showed the world why he might have the greatest left jab in boxing history, put it to full display, went after him hard in the 12th round to try and get a knockout on Shavers, which didn't happen, in a fight that he had basically won. Holmes gets the decision, becomes the number 1 contender for the title that was rewarded to Ken Norton after Ali retired, or retired per se, after his 2nd victory over Leon Spinks. And we have the June 15th, 1978 showdown between Holmes and Norton in a fight where, perfectly put, whoever won the 15th round won the fight, because all 3 judges had the fight even going into the 15th round. And what happens? First half of the 15th round was all Norton. Second half of the 15th round was all Holmes. I'll discuss it more when that anniversary time comes. That Holmes-Norton fight was certainly a classic. If you guys like heavyweight classics, definitely watch that one. But the run that Larry Holmes had to become the 7.5-year heavyweight champion with 20 successful title defenses began 37 years ago when he beat Earnie Shavers the first time to become the number 1 contender for Norton's heavyweight championship, and set off a terrific run for Holmes. Nobody today is going to even touch it. Still criminally underrated all time is Larry Holmes, because when we talk about the all-time greats, his name's not even mentioned enough. And we talk about the top 7 all-time great heavyweights, he's definitely on it just because of his longevity. I mean, 7 years and 20 successful title defenses. You can nitpick his resume all you want, but during that time, he did something right to have that kind of a reign as a heavyweight champion of the world. And a bit more modern, that took place 36 years ago. This was at the Las Vegas Hilton in Las Vegas. This was probably unexpected, not in terms of who would win, but more so of how it was done. Because the definition of a picture-perfect one-punch knockout from the Southpaw stance was displayed. It was delivered by Michael Nunn over the always tough and durable and underrated Sumbu Kalambay. This fight was supposed to be for a unification, but boxing politics got in the way in terms of titles. Sumbu Kalambay was stripped of his because of boxing reasons. Sumbu Kalambay was a vastly underrated fighter, and Michael Nunn was supposed to be this big splash in the middleweight division after the Four Kings era had started to water down or basically die. Because when you think of Marvin Hagler retiring, Leonard, Hearns, and Duran just hanging on to their names, Michael Nunn was going to be the next big splash in that division. And he made the splash on this night, about a minute and a half in, a perfectly placed straight left hand right on Kalambay's chin, Kalambay is down and out for the count. Fight's over in 1 round. And it goes to show the potential that Michael Nunn had if he would have stayed on the straight and narrow, because this was him at his finest, maybe his finest hour, when he retained his middleweight championship, when he pasted a tough fighter in Sumbu Kalambay. All the fight followers can tell you just how vastly tough and how vastly underrated and difficult Sumbu Kalambay is. And I've said all along, it's a crime this guy's not even in the Hall of Fame, because he was as great as all of them. And Michael Nunn just disposed of him in less than a round. A perfectly placed left hand, and that was it. Would you probably say this was the end game for Michael Nunn? Even though he did manage to get some solid wins and solid performances, changed trainers so many times, had some craziness in and out of the ring. Of course, he let go of Joe Goosen, brought him back for the fight against Marlon Sterling, let him go again, brought in Angelo Dundee, and basically had the fight against James Toney under control till he got sloppy and careless. And that was all she wrote for for Nunn, with that left hook by Toney, pasted Nunn on the canvas in the 11th round in his own hometown of Davenport, Iowa. Of course, he would come back to win a world title at super middleweight against the tough Victor Cordoba, but lost it against a journeyman named Steve Little a couple years later in England in a fight where he basically was vastly unprepared for. Basically had a couple wins at light heavyweight, but that was basically it. Of course, he did the massive time in prison for the drug charges he accumulated, and now he's a free man. But Michael Nunn, in terms of sheer talent in that middleweight division, was as great as anyone in terms of his sheer talent, because he had it. I mean, what he did on this night to Sumbu Kalambay showed the whole world just how great Michael Nunn was and could have been. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, rightfully so. But you probably could argue he's a case of a guy that should have been greater, because when he beat Iran Barkley and Marlon Sterling in the 2 fights after he beat Kalambay, even though he looked good, something was missing. You could actually tell, because maybe I guess he thought he would knock everybody out since he pasted Kalambay on the canvas, which didn't happen. Of course, Barkley and Sterling were as tough as they come, and both found a way to last a distance with Nunn. But Michael Nunn had the surreal talent, especially that when he won the championship from Frank Tate 4 fights before, and when he obliterated Juan Roldan, just picked him apart and stopped him. Michael Nunn had surreal talent, and is certainly a great middleweight who's deserving of a Hall of Fame candidacy. But maybe you could argue should have been better than what he was. I mean, he did win 2 world titles. Kudos. Solid wins. Of course, the capper was what he did at Kalambay, but maybe he should have been more than what he was. But, what he did 36 years ago to the tough and durable Sumbu Kalambay was absolutely surreal, because no one could foresee him coming out of nowhere with that straight left hand, and Kalambay just like falling down like a telephone pole, down and out for the count. But as far as Sumbu Kalambay goes, as I said, a legit fighter who should be in the Hall of Fame. It should be at least on the Hall of Fame ballots. It's just inexcusable why he isn't, because he fought the best himself. Just when he ran into Nunn, he just ran into a perfectly placed punch on the perfect spot. But a terrific fighter himself, solid wins, 2 fights with Mike McCallum, had fights against guys like Iran Barkley and Robbie Sims, just to name a few. But a terrific fighter himself who should at least be on the Hall of Fame ballots at the very least. Maybe you could argue he should be a Hall of Famer, because he was a terrific middleweight. But it was 36 years ago. He felt that perfectly placed left hand of Michael Nunn and was down and out for the count. I've said all along when it comes to the Boxing Hall of Fame, it's not like the NFL or the NBA or all of these other sports. It has a bit of a lower bar. But the question I have is, what's the process with it? Because there's some outcries on who's getting in versus who isn't. I mean, I'm not going to debate or argue who's deserving or not, because that part is done. But there are some candidates out there who had some omissions to at least be on the ballot. No one's saying put them in the Hall of Fame. They should at least be on the ballot. And one omission still is Sumbu Kalambay. And there's been those in the boxing fraternity, especially the high level ones, who have called for this guy to be on the ballot at the very least. And it still hasn't happened. The Hall of Fame process needs to be changed and changed dramatically because there's some fighters who are getting an unfair shake and an unfair cut on who should be in or not because there are some glaring omissions when I see the ballots year in and year out. Hopefully that changes soon. Wow. What an interesting day. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everybody has themselves a wonderful 25th of March 2025. Hopefully, especially here in Cincinnati, we get some nice warmer weather here soon. And as always, always make self-care your number one priority in life. Take care of yourself first before you take care of anybody or anything else. Because if you take care of yourself first, good things come your way and good things follow. Don't let anyone take care of you as an option when in their mind, they treat you as an option. Why is that? Because they don't really care about you. They're just using you in the end. Have a good night. God bless and take care of yourselves.